The machine hummed, a sound so soft that it was almost not there, almost like the whisper of something very far away. But General Harrison Cole heard it. His eyes moved under closed lids. Then his fingers twitched. Just once. Just enough to know that something inside him was waking up. The cryo chamber was dark and cold. The walls were made of metal that had not changed in 73 years. Harrison Cole had not changed either. His body was exactly as it had been when they put him to sleep. His face was smooth. His hair was dark. His hands showed no age. But his mind knew nothing of the time that had passed. The hum became louder. The cold that surrounded him started to warm. Slowly, Harrison's eyes opened. They saw only darkness at first. Then a thin line of blue light appeared above him. The chamber door was opening. Cool air moved across his face. He took a breath. Then another Lieutenant Grace Wilson stood beside the chamber, watching every number on the screen. The reading showed that Harrison's heart was beating steady and strong. His brain was waking up the way it should. No damage, no problems. Just a man coming back to life. She had never seen a cryo revival before. She had only read about them in old files. Most people who went into cryo sleep never woke up again. They stayed frozen. They became part of the past. But General Harrison Cole was different. The military needed him. Earth needed him. So they woke him up. Harrison pushed his hand against the chamber wall. His muscles felt weak and strange, like they belonged to someone else. He pushed again, harder this time. The chamber lid moved. Cool air from outside touched his skin. He breathed it in and it burned his lungs, but in a good way. In a way that meant he was alive. Grace reached down and offered him her hand. She was young, maybe 25. She had sharp eyes and a strong grip. She helped him sit up inside the chamber. "General Cole, I am Lieutenant Wilson," she said. Her voice was clear and direct. "Welcome back." Harrison looked at her. His eyes were dark blue and very calm. He did not speak. He just studied her face for a long moment. Then he moved his legs out of the chamber and tried to stand. His legs were not ready. They shook like paper in the wind. Grace caught him before he fell. "Easy, sir. You need time to adjust. Your body has been still for a very long time." Harrison nodded. He understood. He had volunteered for cryosleep. He knew the rules. He knew what it would feel like when he woke. But knowing it in your mind was not the same as feeling it in your body. They moved him to a small recovery room. A doctor named Paul Vernon was waiting. He checked everything. He looked in Harrison's eyes. He listened to his heart. He asked him simple questions. "What is your name? What year were you born? Do you know where you are?" Harrison answered every question. His mind was clear and sharp. His body was weak, but his mind was working fine. After the doctor finished, Grace came back. She brought him water and food. Simple things. Bread and fruit and soup. Harrison ate slowly. His stomach felt strange. The food was different from what he remembered, but it was good. Then Grace sat down across from him. She had a display pad in her hands. On it were numbers and reports and words written in blue light. "General Cole, I need to brief you on the current situation," she said. "The military command has authorized me to tell you everything. But I should warn you, the news is not good." Harrison looked up from his food. He was listening now. Really listening. "The Varath Collective attacked Earth colonies 18 months ago," Grace said. "They came from beyond our sector. We do not know why they chose this time to attack, but they came with ships and weapons we have never seen before. Their weapons can destroy an entire battle station in 3 hits. Maybe less." Harrison set his food down. "How many colonies have fallen?" 3, fully occupied. We have lost contact with them. That is 6 million people at least. And the current colonies? They are still free. But the Vareth have them surrounded. Every day, the Vareth ships circle closer. Our best generals have tried everything. Every tactic. Every strategy. But the Vareth do not break. They do not make mistakes. It is like fighting an idea instead of an enemy. Harrison looked out the window. From the recovery room, he could see the sky. Or what passed for sky in a colony. A thin blue dome that was painted to look like Earth. But it was not Earth. Earth was gone. Or maybe it was not. He did not know how much time had passed. 73 years. A lot could change. Why did they wake me up? He asked. Grace did not smile. She did not look away from his face. Because everyone else is losing. Every general, they have tried. They have failed. The military council voted to wake you. They said that you had won more wars than anyone alive today. That you understood how to think like an enemy. That you could see things other people could not see. And do they think I can stop this enemy? I do not know what the council thinks, sir. But I know that you are awake now. And I know that we need help. We are running out of time. Harrison was quiet for a long time. He looked at his hands. They were steady now. The shaking had stopped. He looked at his arms. The muscles were starting to remember how to work. Can you take me to the command center? He asked. I need to see the enemy. Grace stood up right away. Yes, sir. But you should rest first. Recovery takes time. No, Harrison said. He stood up from his chair. His legs were stronger now. We do not have time. You said so yourself. We are running out of time. So take me to see the Vareth. Grace did not argue. She helped him to his feet. They moved through the corridors of the colony. Other soldiers saw him and stopped to stare. The old general was awake. The legend was walking among them. When they reached the command center, everything stopped. Everyone looked at him. Harrison did not care about their stares. He walked straight to the observation window and looked up. Above the colony. In the dark space beyond the dome, the Vareth fleet was waiting. The ships were dark and angular. They had no curves. No soft parts. Every piece was designed for one thing only. For war. For domination. For taking what they wanted. Harrison studied the formation. The way the ships moved. The distance between them. The patterns they made. After a long time, he turned to Grace. His face was calm and hard. They are waiting for something, he said quietly. But they do not know what they are waiting for. And that is the only weakness I need. Grace felt something shift in her chest. Maybe it was hope. Maybe it was fear. But it was something. General Harrison Cole had woken up. And the war had just changed. Commander Victor Pope stood in the briefing room with his arms crossed. He was a big man with gray hair and a face that had seen too much war. Behind him on the wall was a map showing all the Vareth positions. Red dots for enemy ships. Blue dots for human defenses. The red dots were winning. General Harrison Cole sat at the table. He had been awake for 2 days now. His strength was coming back fast. Faster than anyone expected. He wore a military uniform that they had to alter twice because he had already gained muscle back. So, Harrison said. He was looking at the map. You have tried head-to-head combat. Yes, Victor said. His voice was hard. We lost 5 ships and 100 fighters. The Vareth lost nothing. Not even one small transport. And you tried coordinated strike operations. Yes, we attacked from 3 directions at once. The Vareth simply moved their fleet 200 kilometers higher. We could not reach them. Their weapons reached us just fine. Harrison nodded. He was not surprised. He had read all the reports. Every strategy. Every loss. Every failure. The humans had fought like humans always fought, with force and numbers and the hope that technology would save them. But the Verith were better at that game. How many soldiers do you have? Harrison asked. 5,000 trained military personnel. Another 10,000 civilians who can carry a weapon. And the Verith? We estimate about 30,000 troops. But their weapons are better, and they have air superiority everywhere. Harrison was quiet. Victor waited. The commander did not like this old man. Harrison had been asleep for so long. How could he understand modern war? How could he possibly help? But the orders said to cooperate with him. So Victor cooperated. I need to see the colony layouts, Harrison said. Every building, every underground system, every supply line. I need to know this place better than the Verith do. Victor made a gesture, and an officer brought displays. For the next 6 hours, Harrison studied the colony. He memorized the layouts. He traced the supply lines with his finger. He looked at where the Verith ships stopped and where they circled. He looked at the weak points in the human defenses. When he was done, he said something that made Victor stop. You are fighting this war wrong, Harrison said. It was not mean. It was just fact. Victor's jaw tightened. We are doing everything we can. I know. And it is not working. Because you are trying to beat them at their own game. You have fewer ships, fewer weapons, fewer soldiers. You cannot win that game, so do not play it. Then what do you suggest, General? Harrison stood up and walked to the map. He studied it one more time. How many civilians have volunteered to fight? The 10,000 I mentioned. But we need them for labor, for keeping the colony running. They are not trained soldiers. Show me the names. Show me who they are. Over the next day, Grace Wilson helped Harrison meet with groups of civilians. Young people, old people, teenagers who had grown up under the threat of the Verith, parents who wanted to protect their children, workers and teachers and engineers. They came to see the legendary general. Some of them had hope in their eyes. Others looked like they were already dead. Harrison listened to them. He did not give speeches. He did not tell them that everything would be fine. He told them the truth. The Verith were strong. The fight would be hard. Many would die. But there was a way to win, and he would teach them how. He asked for volunteers. For 1,000 young people with fast hands and quick minds. For people who were willing to do what normal soldiers would never do. The volunteers came forward immediately. Then something happened that Victor Pope did not expect. The training began. But it was not like normal military training. There was no marching, no order, no discipline in the way he thought of discipline. Harrison taught them something different. He taught them how to move like water, how to hit like wind, how to survive without being strong. He taught them sabotage. He taught them how to cut supply lines without being seen, how to damage equipment that was too big to destroy completely, how to poison systems without poisoning the water people drank, how to create problems that would take the Verith hours to fix, then to create more problems while they were still fixing the first ones. Grace Wilson was there for every training session. She began to understand what Harrison was doing. He was not trying to win battles. He was trying to make the Verith lose the war. He was going to break them from the inside. Make them doubt. Make them tired. Make them fear. Victor Pope watched this training and did not know what to think. This was not how wars were fought. This was not how soldiers were made. But slowly, he began to see something. The young people who trained under Harrison were changing. They were no longer afraid. They had purpose. Above the colony, the Verith watched the increased human activity. Commander Kronak was beginning to feel something he had not felt before. Curiosity. The humans had suddenly changed. They were training in new ways. Their patrols were different. Something was happening down there. Something he did not understand. Chronic did not like things he did not understand. One night, Harrison stood on the observation deck with Grace. The Vareth ships moved slowly above them, waiting. "Why are you really here?" Grace asked. "The council said you were our greatest general. But I think there is something more." Harrison looked at the stars. There were so many of them. Thousands, millions, all of them watching. "When I was your age, I fought in the Earth Wars," he said. "Country against country. Different people fighting for the same land. I lost thousands of soldiers. I won every battle, but every victory meant more death, more loss. I began to understand something. That sometimes being strong is not enough. You have to be smart too. You have to know who your enemy is. Not just their weapons, but their mind. And the Vareth? The Vareth think in straight lines. Everything they do is logical, efficient. They do not know how to deal with chaos. They do not know how to think like humans think. We break our own rules. We do things that make no sense. And that is our advantage." Grace understood then. The old general was not fighting with weapons. He was fighting with knowledge, with understanding, with the fact that he had lived long enough to know how many ways there were to break an enemy. "How long do we have?" she asked. "Before the Vareth attack with everything they have." "Not long. Maybe days. Maybe hours. But it will be enough." The first operations began that night. Small teams moved through the colony. They did not attack the Vareth directly. They prepared. They studied. They got ready for something bigger. In the Vareth command ship, Cronach watched the human activity grow. He ordered patrols to increase. He ordered shields to strengthen. But he could feel it. Something was coming. Something that even the Vareth collective was not ready for. And above it all, General Harrison Cole walked through the colony, teaching, preparing, waiting. The real war was about to begin. The supply ships stopped coming. The Vareth had noticed the attacks on their logistics network. Commander Cronach saw that something was wrong with their supply lines. But the attacks made no sense. They were not powerful enough to be a real threat. But they were everywhere. Like an infection spreading through the body, Cronach made a decision. He ordered the invasion fleet to move closer. The orbit above the colony dropped lower and lower. Soon the Vareth ships were positioned directly above the human settlement. They were so close that people on the ground could see the details of the alien vessels. The dark metal, the weapons arrays, the windows that showed nothing of what was inside. In the command center, Victor Pope looked pale. This was it. The final push. The Vareth were moving in for the kill, but General Harrison Cole was not worried. He was sitting in a quiet room with a communications officer named Paul Abbott. Paul was young and brilliant. He understood systems that most people could not even comprehend. He understood networks. He understood codes. He understood the way machines talk to each other. "Can you reach their central command system?" Harrison asked. Paul shook his head slowly. "Not directly. The security is too strong. But if someone was inside the flagship itself, if someone could physically connect the device to the main processor, then yes, I could do something." Harrison nodded. He had expected that answer. "Then someone is going to go inside the flagship." Paul's face went white. "That is impossible, sir. The Vareth flagship is guarded by hundreds of soldiers. There is no way to reach the main processor. There is no way to survive." "There are always ways," Harrison said. "We just have to find them." He called in his team. Grace Wilson, Linda Abbott, who was a demolition expert, Marcus Hayes, who was a communications specialist. These three had trained harder than anyone else. They were faster, smarter, and braver than most soldiers. They were also the youngest. They had the most to lose. Harrison showed them the plan. The Verith flagship had a weakness. Not in its weapons, not in its shields, but in its confidence. The Verith believed they were invincible. Because of this, they did not check every corner. They did not guard every entrance. They assumed that no one could reach them. The plan was simple. A small ship, disguised as a damaged Verith transport, would approach the flagship. It would request docking for repairs. The Verith would not suspect anything because they believed they were too powerful to be attacked. Once inside, the team would have exactly 12 minutes to reach the main processor room, connect Paul's device, and get out. What are the odds of success? Victor asked when he heard the plan. Very low, Harrison said. But what is the alternative? We have days before they destroy the colony completely. Maybe less. At least this way, we are doing something. Grace, Linda, and Marcus did not hesitate. They volunteered immediately. They knew they might die, but they also knew that everyone in the colony would die if they did nothing. So they volunteered. The night before the operation, Harrison met with each of them alone. With Grace, he talked about the future. He told her that she was brave in a way that most people never get to be. He told her that whatever happened, she had already won something important. She had lived fully. She had fought for something larger than herself. With Linda, he talked about strength. He told her that strength was not always about size or power. Sometimes it was about holding on when everything wanted you to let go. Sometimes it was about moving forward when every part of you wanted to stop. With Marcus, he talked about purpose. He told him that not everyone gets to know why they are alive. But Marcus knew. He was alive to do this one thing, to save millions of people he would never meet. That was purpose enough. The ship launched before dawn. It moved slowly toward the Verith flagship. Inside, the three volunteers checked their equipment one last time. Heart rates elevated. Breathing controlled. Minds focused. The Verith granted docking permission immediately, just as Harrison had predicted. The ship locked into place. Against the massive hull of the alien vessel Dot, they moved through the corridors of the flagship like ghosts. The metal walls were smooth and cold. The Verith passed by them occasionally, but the three humans had disguised themselves in captured Verith uniforms. They moved with purpose. They did not hesitate. Hesitation looked suspicious. They reached the main processor room. Verith soldiers were stationed outside. Linda created a small explosion in a nearby corridor. Just enough noise to draw attention. The soldiers moved away to investigate. Marcus connected the device to the main processor. It was a small box made of materials that the Verith had never seen. Paul Abbott had designed it to look harmless. But inside it, it was a weapon. It was a program that would introduce chaos into every command the Verith sent. It would turn their unified fleet into something broken and disconnected. The upload began. Numbers appeared on a display. The process needed 90 seconds. They had already used 30 seconds drawing the guards away. Alarms started sounding. The disguises were no longer enough. Verith soldiers were moving through the corridors. They had been discovered. Grace Wilson moved to the entrance of the processor room. She had a weapon, a small pulse gun that was barely powerful enough to hurt anyone. But she had something more powerful than a weapon. She had the knowledge that she had to hold this position for 60 seconds more. That was all. Just 60 more seconds. The first Verith soldier rounded the corner and saw her. Grace fired. The pulse hit the soldier in the chest. It did not kill him, but it hurt. It pushed him backward. He fell. More soldiers came. One hit her in the left shoulder. She felt the pain like fire. But she did not fall. She could not fall. She fired again. And again, Marcus watched the numbers climb. 50% uploaded. 60%. Linda was beside Grace now, helping to hold the line. She was hit twice. Once in the arm, once in the leg. But she kept firing. 70% uploaded. 80%. Harrison was watching all of this from the command center. He saw everything. He saw his soldiers being hurt. He saw the operation becoming impossible. And he also saw that it was working. 90%. 100%. Marcus screamed. They ran. Grace and Linda barely made it to the ship. The Verith were right behind them. Blasters fired. The ship detached from the flagship with 3 of its walls scorched and burning. The ship made it back to the colony. When the doors opened, Verith soldiers were still firing at them. But the 3 of them had made it. They were alive. In the Verith fleet, something was happening. Every ship suddenly received a command to change course. Then a different command. Then another. The central network was fracturing. The orders were contradictory. Ships began moving to intercept each other. Verith commanders were screaming. Orders that made no sense. Chaos spread through the alien fleet like a disease. Harrison Cole stood in the command center and looked at the Verith ships beginning to tear themselves apart. He did not celebrate. He did not smile. He just looked at his soldiers. At Grace with blood on her uniform. At Linda, who could barely stand. At the cost of what had been done. Now they have a choice, Harrison said quietly. Fight each other. Or admit that they were beaten by an enemy they could not understand. Either way, we have won. Victor Pope looked at the general and finally understood. This old man was not a soldier in the way that Victor understood soldiers. He was something else. He was a man who had learned how to turn his enemy's strength into their weakness. The Verith fleet was destroying itself. That was the only word for it. Ships that should have been protecting each other were now trying to destroy each other. Supply vessels were firing on battleships. Fighter squadrons were receiving orders to attack their own support craft. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Commander Kronak saw everything and understood immediately what had happened. The humans had introduced a virus into the command network, but not a virus that destroyed information. A virus that changed information. A virus that made the system tell lies. Kronak had been trained to think logically, to follow protocol, to trust the chain of command. But the chain of command was now telling him to do things that were killing his own people. Every second he obeyed the orders, more Verith soldiers died. But every second he tried to fix the problem, more soldiers died from disobeying those same orders. In the colony below, the humans watched the Verith fleet tear itself apart. Soldiers who had been ready to die were now watching their enemy fail. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt strange. Like something was wrong with the world. General Harrison Cole did not celebrate. He moved immediately to the next phase. He knew that the Verith would not stay confused forever. He knew that Kronak would eventually figure out how to restore order. And when he did, the Verith would fight even harder. Begin the defense operations, Harrison ordered. Every available soldier and civilian. We are not attacking. We are fortifying. Victor Pope's eyes widened. Sir, they are confused right now. This is our chance to strike. To push them back. No, Harrison said. His voice was hard and clear. We strike at them now, and they will remember how to be dangerous. We defend now, and they will remember how to be afraid. There's a difference. For the next 4 hours, the entire colony transformed. Humans moved with purpose. They built barriers. They reinforced structures. They created supply caches. They prepared for an invasion. They prepared for the moment when the Verith would either attack or run. Verith, Prime, was the supreme commander of the entire Vareth collective. He did not usually involve himself in individual campaigns. But this one was different. The humans had done something that the Vareth had never encountered before. They had made a weapon out of information itself. They had turned the Vareth's own strength against them. Vareth Prime studied the battle reports. He saw that his fleet was still intact. No ships had been destroyed yet. But the confusion was spreading. The younger commanders were losing confidence. They were starting to make mistakes. He made a decision that was not logical, but it was wise. Vareth Prime opened a communication channel directly to General Harrison Cole. The message came through on every human screen. The alien commander's voice was strange. It had layers. It sounded like it was coming from very far away and very close at the same time. The Vareth spoke in a language that humans had never heard before, but somehow they understood. Translation systems worked instantly. The meaning was clear. General of humans, I am Vareth Prime, the commander of the combined fleet forces of the Vareth collective. I want to speak with you, alone, without weapons, without interference from either of our people. Will you accept this communication? The colony went silent. Every human was watching. Grace Wilson looked at Harrison. The old general's face did not change. Accept the channel, he said. Vareth Prime appeared on the screen. He was a large being. His skin was dark gray. His eyes were cold and intelligent. He had 4 arms. His face had no expression. I have studied the records of this encounter, Vareth Prime said. Your species has done something remarkable. You have transformed a weakness into a strength. You have taken a technical disadvantage and turned it into a weapon. This is unusual. This is not logical. And yet, it has succeeded. What do you want? Harrison asked. I want to understand. In the wars the Vareth have fought across this galaxy, we have never encountered a species like you. We are stronger. We are faster. We are more advanced. And yet, you are difficult to defeat. Why is that? Harrison did not hesitate. Because we fight with our minds, not just our bodies. We know that we are not stronger than you. So we do not try to be. Instead, we study you. We find the one weakness that you do not know you have. And we hit that weakness with everything we have. Vareth Prime was silent for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was different. Almost like he was considering something important. In the Vareth understanding, this is called adaptation. It is the quality that we value above all others. It is why the Vareth have survived for so long in a hostile galaxy. You have shown this quality to a degree that surprises me. You are offering something, Harrison said. It was not a question. Yes, I am offering a truce. The Vareth will withdraw from this colony. We will withdraw from all human territories that we currently occupy. In exchange, the humans will promise not to use this attack method against any Vareth fleet in the future. We will speak of this as a victory for both of us. We will recognize each other as worthy opponents. And if I refuse, then we will fight. And we will still lose many soldiers. But eventually, we will overwhelm you through sheer numbers and resources. This is also possible. But it is wasteful. It is inefficient. It does not serve the interests of either species. Harrison looked at Vareth Prime for a long moment. He saw intelligence there. He saw something that was not just logic, but also something like honor. Like the alien understood that the humans had beaten them not through luck, but through skill and sacrifice. The humans will accept your terms, Harrison said. But we will not make promises about the future. We reserve the right to defend ourselves as we see fit. If you return to human space, we will do what we did here. This is acceptable, Vareth Prime said. The Vareth will withdraw. We will leave this galaxy for a time. Maybe we will return. Maybe we will not. But when we return, it will be as something different. We will remember what you have taught us today." The communication ended. Above the colony, the Verith fleet began to move. Slowly, carefully, the alien ships rose into orbit. They did not attack. They did not fire weapons. They simply left. One by one, two by two, entire battle groups moving away from the human colony. The humans watched in silence. Then someone started the cheer. Then someone else. Then the whole colony was cheering. Soldiers and civilians and young people who had volunteered for impossible things. They were cheering. Grace Wilson came to Harrison. She was still injured, blood on her uniform, but she was smiling. "We won," she said. "Yes," Harrison said. "We did. What happens now? Now we rebuild. We prepare. And we remember that the Varth are smart enough to learn from their mistakes. One day, they might come back. And when they do, they will not make the same mistakes again." The last Varith ship cleared the atmosphere. The war was over. It had taken 73 years for them to wake him up. But it took only hours for him to change everything. 3 weeks had passed since the Varith fleet left. 3 weeks since the war ended. The colony was still shaking, not from explosions or attacks, but from the realization of what had happened. Humans had faced an enemy that was stronger, faster, and more advanced. And humans had won. Victor Pope sat across from General Harrison Cole in the command center. The big commander was a different man now. He was smaller somehow, not in body, but in spirit. He had believed that strength was the only thing that mattered in war. Harrison had shown him that understanding was stronger than any weapon. "The military council wants to make you the supreme commander of all human forces," Victor said. "They are offering you complete authority. You could rebuild the entire military strategy. You could prepare us for whatever comes next." Harrison shook his head slowly. "No, I am old. I have lived long enough. The time for me to lead is over. But sir, the soldiers respect you. The people believe in you. You could do so much." "I could," Harrison agreed. "But I will not. The future does not belong to me. It belongs to people like you, to people like Grace Wilson. You have to learn to trust yourselves. You have to understand that the victory was not just because of me. It was because of all of you. It was because you were willing to do something impossible." Victor did not argue. He understood that Harrison was right. The military council called a ceremony. It was held in the main square of the colony. Thousands of people came. Soldiers and civilians. Young people and old people. They came to honor those who had died, and to celebrate those who had survived. The names were read. Every soldier, every civilian, everyone who had given their life to protect the colony. Families cried. Friends remembered. The weight of loss was real and terrible. But after the loss came the celebration. It was not a joyful thing. It was a quiet thing. It was a moment where people stood together and acknowledged that they had survived something terrible, and that they would continue surviving. They would rebuild. They would create something new from what the Varith had destroyed. Marcus Hayes received a medal for the infiltration operation. His family stood beside him. His mother was crying. His father was smiling. They had almost lost him, but he had come back. Linda Abbott stood in front of the colony with her arm in a sling. Half her face was wrapped in bandages from the burns she had suffered inside the Varith flagship. But she was alive, and she was smiling. The colony gave her a standing ovation. Grace Wilson stood last. She had asked to be last. The bandages on her shoulder and arm were white against her dark uniform. She was the youngest of the three who had infiltrated the Varith flagship. And she was the strongest in a way that had nothing to do with physical power. When the ceremony was over, Harrison found Grace in the observation deck. She was looking up at the stars. The space above the colony was empty now. For the first time in 18 months, the sky was truly open. "What will you do now?" Harrison asked. "I want to learn," Grace said. "Everything you know. Everything about strategy. About understanding enemies. About winning without destroying everything. I want to know it all. And I wanted to teach it to others." Harrison stood beside her. They looked at the stars together. Somewhere out there, the Verath fleet was traveling back to their home. Somewhere out there, Verath Prime was thinking about humans. About how an old species and a young species could fight to a standstill. And how that standstill was more valuable than victory. "You will do great things," Harrison said. "Better than I did. Because you will not have to learn through all the wars that I learned through. You will have the lessons without the scars. Well, some of the scars. But not all of them. Will they come back?" Grace asked. "The Verath." "Yes," Harrison said. "Eventually. But not for a while. And when they come back, they will be different. We showed them that strength is not everything. That will change how they think. That will change how they fight. Maybe it will change them completely. We will not know until we face them again. Are you afraid?" "No. Are you?" "A little. But not as much as before." "Good. Fear is useful. It makes you careful. But it should never make you stop trying." The next morning, General Harrison Cole left the military service. Officially, he was given a full retirement with honors. But really, he just walked away. He moved to a quiet part of the colony. A place near the agricultural domes where plants grew and the air smelled like earth. He spent his days teaching. Not just military tactics, but history, philosophy, the lessons of wars that had been fought centuries ago on a planet that no longer existed. He taught anyone who wanted to learn. Young soldiers, teenagers, old civilians who had fought during the occupation. And sometimes Grace Wilson came to sit with him. They talked about the future, about what would happen next, about what it meant to be human in a galaxy full of aliens who did not understand humanity at all. The colony began to rebuild. Buildings that had been damaged were repaired. New defenses were built, but not in the aggressive way. They were built to protect, not to attack. The humans had learned from General Cole that the best defense was not force, but understanding. The news of the human victory spread through human space. It reached the other colonies. It reached stations and outposts and ships traveling between the stars. And it changed something fundamental in how humans saw themselves. They were not the strongest species in the galaxy, but they were smart. They were adaptable. They were willing to sacrifice for something larger than themselves. And those things were more powerful than any weapon. In the years that followed, humanity grew stronger. Not because they built bigger ships or better weapons, but because they understood something that the Verath were only beginning to understand. That intelligence and compassion were more valuable than force. That understanding your enemy was more powerful than destroying them. And it all started because one old general woke up from 73 years of sleep. Because he looked at an impossible situation and found the one weakness that mattered. Because he was willing to teach others what he had learned through a lifetime of war. And because his people were brave enough to believe that an old man's wisdom could change the future. Harrison Cole did not live forever. No one does. But before he died, he trained a generation of human commanders. They learned his methods. They understood his philosophy. They spread it through all of human space. And when the Verath came back, years later, the humans were ready. They had turned defeat into wisdom. They had turned war into understanding. Grace Wilson eventually became the highest-ranking military officer in human space. Not because she was the strongest, but because she understood, as Harrison had taught her, that the greatest victories come not from winning battles, but from changing the way the enemy thinks, and on quiet nights, when she stood on an observation deck and looked at the stars, she remembered the moment when old General had woken from frozen sleep. She remembered when the war had ended not with explosions, but with understanding. She remembered when humanity had proven that they were worthy of the galaxy itself. The war had lasted 18 months, but it was ended in hours, not by force, but by wisdom. And that wisdom would echo through time. It would reach across the galaxy. It would touch every human who ever wondered if they were strong enough to survive the darkness between the stars. And the answer was, always yes. Always yes. Because humans were never as alone or as weak as they feared. They had each other. They had history. They had the ability to learn and adapt and change. And that was enough. That was always enough.